And finally, my third observation, Carson Wentz needs to be traded in order to save his career. I believe strongly now that Carson Wentz needs to revive his career in another city, because right now he can't do it as an Eagle.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, ChadBurn, and this week we have a very special episode because what we're going to do is we're not going to do the usual setup, right? Usually we have 2 to 3 segments, very focused on different areas. Even recently with the NFL, we focus very heavy on looking at all the big storylines of the NFL each week, which games were close, which games were surprising, which were amazing. And there was plenty of that. We had the Rams beating Seattle. We had close games between Washington and Lions with a last-minute field goal to win that. We had the most incredible Hail Mary catch by DeAndre Hopkins for the Cardinals, something that we haven't seen in so many weeks, years to see a Hail Mary like that work. That alone, worthwhile discussing, worthwhile covering, just hitting that home. But I can't go through all that stuff right now because even after giving myself 24 hours from that shit show of a performance between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants, even after giving myself time to reflect, to think, to look over the film again, to watch the game another time, to just give myself a chance to go, you know what? That's just who they are. That's who he goes. No, I am still riled up, pissed off, infuriated by the performance that team came forward with yesterday against the New York Giants. And this is not to say that the New York Giants did not earn that game. The New York Giants earned that win. They came in ready to play a divisional round in the NFL. They came in. They said, I'm here to play. I don't care how bad our division is. I don't care what the stakes are. I want to win. That was the Giants' mentality. They came in wanting to win. And they steamrolled over a pathetic Eagles team. It was pathetic. So I'm not going to go the normal routes. We're not going to go about these little topics here or there. We're not going to do different things diverging. This is going to be a very Eagles-heavy episode. So I apologize to listeners who are not big Eagles fans. If you don't want to tune in just because the Eagles, I understand. But if you want to bear witness to some through some anger and expletives coming from me, coming from ChadBurn, feel free to stick around because it'll be entertaining for that alone. Maybe entertaining at my own expense because of how silly it will be, of how angry I am over this nonsense. So the Philadelphia Eagles end up losing yesterday 27-17 against the New York Giants at the Meadowlands in New Jersey in what can be deemed only kind way of putting it, a lackluster performance by the team. The Eagles went out and took a dump on that field and said, we're not going to play there. I know we've talked about bye week woes. We've talked about issues over the bye week of how Doug Peterson is not always prepared for the bye week, but it did not have me prepared for what we saw on that field. Something that we need to note. This morning on a big radio station in Philadelphia, 94 WIP, The Fan, which has every Monday, Doug Peterson comes in to give his little post-game recap to Angelo, who is a very famous radio news host in Philadelphia, to talk about the game and what happened before. And he comes on and has the audacity to tell the radio station he's pissed off and mad about how they introed him. Because they introed him in. Their lead into him was a survey about Philadelphians, a Twitter survey that showed 72% believe that the fault of that 10-point loss was on Doug Peterson. And he has the nerve to come onto that show and say he's pissed off and angry about the way he's let in. That he's pissed off at this team. He's pissed off about how they perform, about how they all do this. If you're pissed off, then do something about it. This is the head coach of the football team, and he sounds helpless. He has no idea how to get control of this team and how to win again. When you listen to Doug Peterson take press conference after press conference and take interview after these constant soul-crushing losses and poor performances by the team, there is nothing that tells me that this man is ready to get through this. It is so uninspiring to hear him speak now that you can sense just the complete defeat within his body. His soul is burned out. He doesn't want to do this anymore. It is driving him insane because he can't figure out how to get this team to play better. This coach has lost his winning ways. It is apparent by the play calling, is apparent by the team's preparation, is apparent how after every fucking game, we have to hear him say, I should have done something better. I should have gotten this team better. I should have done better play calling. How is it every single game we have at least a handful of plays that we can analyze in this game and say, what the hell was Doug Peterson thinking? Why did he call that? In this game alone, it for me would be the 2 Hurts plays that netted, let's see, Jalen Hurts on 2 carries, -1 yards. One of them a low snap. Another thing we'll discuss about the sloppiness of this game, but -1 yards. So we're not using Hurts right again, so stupid play calling there. Again, everybody knows what he's going to do. And then a 2-point conversion when all it took was an extra PAT to put this game within a field goal of tying it up. Doug Peterson goes for a 2-point conversion, calls a terrible play that does not work because no one's open in the end zone. And it leads to the Eagles then being down by 4 points. They need to score now a touchdown to win. On a team that has not been moving the ball well, Doug Peterson decides to put them into a bigger hole. Because probably somewhere along the line, he's going to tell us, well, the analytics said we had a better chance of winning. I don't give a shit. Play football. Use your instincts. Been in this game from the highest level for so long. Why can't you just rely on your own instincts to make a better play in that game? It's just, why is it constantly that we have to go back and say, why is Doug making these calls? I know he was our Super Bowl winning coach. I know we have a statue for him outside of the Lincoln Financial Field. I know, I'm aware of all this. I'm aware of the leeway we give this man, that we believe that it's okay to allow him to somehow fade away in the distance and not hold him accountable. That has to be over with. It's done. Doug Peterson now has to be looked at what he's done recently. If we're going to go after the players the same way, we need to go after the coach as well. And over the last 3 seasons, he has been an average at best coach. His play calling is worse. He is almost last in the league on 4th down plays and conversions. He's getting now almost last in the league on 2-point conversions. The aggressiveness, the things that we hallmarked as Doug Peterson being a master of, being skillful in areas where other people would be afraid to go forward. We said Doug Peterson had the courage, he had the smarts, he had the new form of play calling that was going to take us and elevate the game of the Philadelphia Eagles to the next level. Don't forget, this was the new norm when we won the Super Bowl. The new norm was a winning franchise, a winning team that could be replicated because his game plan could fit with any players, any system. It was his way, was going to work. What happens after Super Bowl? 9-7, 1 playoff win. Second year after that, 9-7. And now we are 3-5-1 in the worst division in football. There's not much hope here, folks. If you're an Eagles fan right now, there is not much hope on this team. In fact, we are very close, if not at the precipice of this team needing to rebuild. This team is not meant to go far. It is done. It needs to be taken apart. And everyone in this organization, now I am riding on Doug Peterson hard right now because I am just frustrated with hearing his response on the radio the day after and hearing his press conferences and being flippant with the reporters. But everyone in this organization, all the players need to be held accountable. There are only a few players that cannot be held accountable as well. And positional coaches that probably have no say at all in this game. I mean, do we at this point think Deuce Staley is controlling Doug Peterson at all when it comes to offensive play calling? He's supposed to be the assistant offensive coordinator. Assistant head coach with the running back responsibility. Do we believe anyone is making any impact on his play calling besides him? Of course not. Doug Peterson already said he doesn't want to give up the play calling because he enjoys calling the plays. Well, I also enjoy going for long walks on the beach, Doug, but that doesn't fucking mean that I have to go to the beach when I live in the middle of Canada. Now, does it? No, we all know what you want, Doug, but you can't always get it. In fact, if you were a good coach, if you were a good leader, you would recognize when what you're doing is the problem and hand off responsibility to the next person. Be a head coach. Stop calling the plays. Organize your team around the objectives that need to get done in order to succeed, and maintain control over both the offense and the defense, and have a level of quality control to ensure that they are fitting to what you feel represents the Eagle culture, represents your team. You don't have to call the plays in order to be a top head coach. A lot of the most successful head coaches in this league relinquish that power because there are so many responsibilities associated with being a head coach that you cannot just be responsible and be buried into the playbooks on offense. You need to have a universal look at the game. But I'm digressing because obviously I'm just so riled up over this and hearing what he has to say, but there are much more we need to cover. So first, we're going to stop with some observations of this game and where we really felt that the Eagles have completely fallen off. Because this was, if this is a cause from bye week and the COVID situation that are going on, it was a bye week from hell. Because first off, both sides of the ball were incredibly sloppy. The offense was, I don't know what's going on with it, but we had almost 11 penalties in total, suffering over 70 yards caused from it. The offense was sloppy from the get-go. In 2 quarters with 7 minutes, in the second quarter with 7 minutes left in the game, the Eagles have a drive where on 2 plays, the blocking schemes were completely off. You had the play where it was a fake to the right, a rollout by Wentz, and you had the pulling tight end coming across. As the tight end is pulling across, he runs into his own lineman because he's not sure where he's supposed to go. The people blocking were not prepared, and the Giants completely blew up the play. So Wentz gets hit early there. The next play after that, the running backs don't know who to pick up. There's no communication. They're not prepared on the play to know who they're supposed to pick up on the blitzing linemen and linebackers. And that was a theme throughout the game because not only did it happen that play, it happened throughout the game where the tight ends and the running backs did not know who they were supposed to block, which is an embarrassment on its own. The bad plays are emblematic of bad preparation. If they don't know where they're supposed to block, that means that during practice, they're not being told exactly how to go through plays. They're not running through it properly. They're not getting the complete run through they need in order to feel confident in the game to execute that play to perfection. And that's on the coaching. Maybe not just Doug Peterson, but on the whole coaching staff. That they're not prepared heading into this game. The running backs need to be better coached up by Deuce Staley and the offensive coordinators because they need to know how to prepare. If we're complaining about Wentz holding on the ball too long, then we need to at least give him time to execute the fucking plays. So let's get the running backs to actually know what the hell they're doing. On 3rd and 1, early and also the second quarter, Wentz trips on his own freaking feet. Wentz is literally falling over his own feet. And on 3rd and 1, we have a chance to get into the red zone. He falls back and gets sacked and we're out of a field goal range. Not to mention, later on the other drives, he fumbles a snap because of a low snap. Hurts even ended up fumbling a low snap. Jason Kelce was low snap after low snap after low snap. Even the ones that Wentz caught low, threw his eyes down. He had to look down. He can't see who the wide receivers are. All of a sudden, he has linemen coming right at him, and he is having to make a quick play or try and toss the ball out. Those snaps threw off the offense on almost a dozen times. How is that possible, Kelce? How? Sloppy play by the offense. But then we go to the other side of the ball. Sloppy play by the defense. The bye week woes just continue on. On the first 2 drives of the game, the Giants go down the field with an 85-yard touchdown drive. Second drive, 75-yard touchdown drive. The defense just continued to give up and up of big plays, not allowing ever them to get a stop on the Giants and to slow their momentum down at all. Eventually, after those 2 big drives, they forced the Giants to a punt, another punt, and then a turnover downs, which then ends the second quarter and the first half. And then the next half, the Eagles finally go down with an 84-yard TD drive to get within a chance to sniff this, to get an opportunity to win this game. And the next drive, Giants go on a 75-yard touchdown drive. You can't stop them at any point? Not at all. And the Eagles, of course, then go on to score on the next drive. So they punch, counterpunch again. And yet after that point, the defense is able to make some stops, but we can't get in and score. And the play calling on the defense, just as much as we're calling out on Doug Peterson, Schwartz, I have no idea where the hell he is. Because he apparently has no idea what personnel he has on that field. Because on a 3rd and 5, the Giants are on their own 7-yard line. It is 3rd and 5. You know they need to get the ball out fast. You know you need to be close on them. Schwartz has them in a zone coverage that leaves a gap easy for Slayton to slip out through. Slayton or Shepard, but someone slips out behind Maddox. And Maddox is not in the right spot. He's not ready to go. Why are we not manning up on them and staying close? Man up, have some over-the-top help, so if they try and go deep, you can stop them. But just, you know the ball's got to get out quickly. You know that they're not going to be comfortable with that being that close to their own end zone. So just get up and get tight on the quarterback and on the wide receivers. Instead, we give them gaps, and Daniel Jones knows exactly where he needs to go with the ball. Excuse me. In the third quarter, with 11 minutes and 3 seconds left, on 2 plays in a row, the Giants see one-on-one coverage, and all they do is throw the ball up, and the wide receivers high point the ball and come down with it. Our cornerbacks couldn't stop them at all. We actually spent money to get Darius Slay over here, and while I don't think he's been our problem, he had one bad play he messed up on. The rest of our cornerbacks can't cover at all. I mean, it explains why Schwartz is having to rely on zone in terrible situations, but it's just that they can't even disrupt them. These were hard passes to catch, and the wide receivers are high pointing it with ease, which is also frustrating because when you saw the Eagles try and do this, there's a one play to Rager down the sideline where Wentz throws it up to him back shoulder to give him a high point to catch it, and he drops it. So even in the situation where we're trying to do what the Giants are doing, we can't complete it at all. Because you have the defense doing shite on one side, you have our offense doing shite on the other. It just doesn't work. It's maddening to watch as a fan. Absolutely maddening to watch. So sloppiness in the offense, sloppiness on the defense. And yet with all this sloppiness, with all this terrible bye woes, the Eagles still had plenty of opportunities to win this. But again, because of Doug Peterson going for that 2-point conversion later in the game and making it now a 4-point game rather than a field goal to tie it, it changes the entire strategy for the rest of the game. It forces you to realize you have to go for a touchdown. It changes the play calling. It changes the pressure. The Giants know now they can give up all they want between the 20s. They can bend but not break. That's all they have to do. You heard the announcer talk all night that is what their defense does. They bend but don't break. So now that you have to score a touchdown, the Giants are going to let you do whatever you want between the 20s. But they're not going to let you in the end zone. Doug, if you had just hit that extra, gone for the PAT and made it a 3-point game, then we could have easily moved down and tied this one. Put some pressure on the Giants. Make them realize that they got to make a big play in order for this to work out. But they don't. That's how the story goes for this team. That's how the story goes for this game. So when I look at this and I see the stat lines and I see the way the game plays out and the strategy and all the different people and all the different cogs in this machine that are to blame, that are falling apart, that are just disrupting and rusting and crumbling, the foundation is crumbling for this team. I come away with 3 observations. 1, as mentioned before, Doug P has lost complete control of his game plan. It's not working anymore. His 4th down conversions aren't happening. His 2-point conversions aren't happening. His play calling is predictable. He's unable to find any sort of injection of creativity into this team. Hurts is not the answer. It's not working. He's being completely underutilized and utilized improperly. And no matter what he throws out there, the routes aren't open. Look, we can blame Carson Wentz for a lot of this, and we are going to get to Carson Wentz. But right now, Doug Peterson plays, the wide receivers are not open. A lot of times we talk about the coaches need to be able to create a game plan with what's on the field. Well, we know Fulgham's good, we know Rager's good, but we don't have a lot of great wide receiver help open there. So if we know what's on the field, if we know they're not going to get separation, if we know the ball needs to come out quickly, let's design some quick plays. All he's got is check downs in the middle, and then everyone else is going for some deep routes. Why don't we develop some game plan to get the wide receivers open quickly, some rubs, some easy little routes that are going to create some confusion in the secondary so that we can get easy passes for short yardage and quickly move down the field? We don't do that because we have to stick to Doug Peterson's game plan because there can be no adjustment to his game plan. It's going to work no matter what. Wrong. Schwartz has to go. That's observation number 2. Schwartz has to go. Because this defense has talent. We're 3rd in the league in sacks. We're able to actually get after the quarterback. The secondary is not terrible, but for whatever reason, Schwartz is calling questionable play call after questionable play call in critical situations. He knew that they were going after corners on one-on-one, so he's not giving him help. He knows when they're down on their own yard line, they need to be up on him, but yet he's creating soft pockets for Daniel Jones to throw the ball. He knew Daniel Jones was going to run the ball, and yet he couldn't stop him. There was no spies. No one was game plan ready. No one knew what to do with Daniel Jones. You saw later in the game they adjusted with Josh Sweat being able to watch and be a little bit of a spy on Daniel Jones. But early in the game, when it mattered, it was not ready. I mean, quickly look over Daniel Jones, 21 of 28 for 244 yards throwing, had 9 carries with 64 yards. He led the team in rushing. Schwartz, what are you doing? Daniel Jones, I know, is athletic, but he's not Lamar Jackson. You should be able to contain him to some degree with a spy, with some type of game plan to cover that middle route. When he breaks free, there has to be someone there. So in my opinion, because this has been several years now where the defense has not performed up to the talent on that roster, that Schwartz needs to go. He was an underachieving head coach. He's an underachieving defense coordinator. Has to go. And finally, my third observation. Carson Wentz needs to be traded in order to save his career. I believe strongly now that Carson Wentz needs to revive his career in another city. Because right now, he can't do it as an Eagle. He does not have a coaching staff that is building game plans around his strengths. He does not have a coaching staff that is trying to develop him. He does not have anyone that is able to continue to excel him and teach him where his errors are to make him better, because all we've seen since his MVP season in 2017 is a complete regression under the solely Doug Peterson regime. As we've heard, there are rumors that the Colts would like to trade for Carson Wentz. Frank Reich wants Carson Wentz, and it makes sense. As we can tell right now, Frank Reich, over on the Colts, with a quarterback in Phillip Rivers, who, granted, could become a Hall of Famer one day. Phillip Rivers, the last 3 years, has had almost the same, if not higher, turnover ratio than Carson Wentz, has performed at the same, if not lower, level in yards and completion percentage than Carson Wentz. At all levels, Phillip Rivers, not talking about young Phillip Rivers, but the recent Phillip Rivers, is performing at the same level of Carson Wentz with less mobility. Frank Reich has taken that quarterback and is now leading their division in a very tough AFC South. Frank Reich takes what's on the field. He plays the hot hand with a running back. He builds a game plan to fit whatever wide receiver they're on for the team that they're facing. Frank Reich has built a winning team from the ashes. Doug Peterson has taken a talented team with a good coaching staff to the Super Bowl and caught lightning in a bottle, but since then has deteriorated this team from the top down. With the loss of Frank Reich, we have seen only the digression in skill from Carson Wentz. And there has to be some correlation there. When you do the formula there and you look at the numbers and you look at things, I mean, we're approaching 1, folks. The correlation is strong. He is nowhere near getting the best out of Carson Wentz. And I fear that if Carson Wentz stays with the Philadelphia Eagles, the frustration and the pressure from this fan base will ruin that young man's career. It is important for Carson to get to a new city, to get to a coach that will build a game plan around him and not force him to fit with the cookie cutter game plan that they've designed. He needs that in order to succeed. And I think a coach like Frank Reich would bring that out of him. Now, what makes me sad about making a comment like that is that I truly believe that if Carson Wentz goes to another team, goes to another head coach, he will get back to that MVP caliber level. And I, unfortunately, as Eagle fan, will not be able to reap the benefits of that. Unfortunately, in order to see that young man's career grow and blossom into something great, he needs to leave my team is a hard thing to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's hard to come to that realization. But I truly believe that. Because I think we as fans demand a lot of greatness. But if we can't get a coach staff to get that greatness out of him, we will continue to hold him accountable and be frustrated with him. And we have a right to. Look, he went 21 for 37 last night for 208 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Great. No turnovers. No turnovers. That's a big deal. But Carson Wentz is still not getting it done when he needs to get done. There were passes that were behind. There were little high passes. Like, he also had wide receivers dropping balls that he needs to catch. Again, as we pointed out, Giants, high point, getting the ball, good to go. Carson Wentz tries the same thing with our wide receivers. Can't come away with it. Can't do it. The fact of the matter remains that Carson Wentz has a lot of raw talent. And it needs to be honed. It needs to be able to be brought down to allow him to know when he can succeed and know when he needs to back down. And this offense that he's in right now is not built for him. It's built for one person and one person only, and that's Doug Peterson. So again, my 3 observations, as I stated, Doug P. lost complete control of his playbook. Schwartz needs to go. And Carson Wentz needs to be traded to another team in order to save his career. And what's shocking in all my assessment there, in all my anger, frustration, and blame on this organization, there's one man that I haven't mentioned who also deserves a lot of blame in this problem we face now. And that's Howie Roseman. In 2017, we heralded Howie Roseman as a genius, as a gamer, as a man who could fit and find players in order to build championship teams. We thought he always could get the better end of a trade. He was a financial whiz and able to fold these contracts and able to restructure them so that we had the cap space to build. Well, all Howie Roseman has done since 2017 is hold on to old talent with Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, who have consistently not been able to play majority of the season over the last 3 years. Alshon Jeffrey has been injured every season for the last 3 years and has not played a majority of the games in the regular football season. Deshaun Jackson missed all of last year except for 2 games. Deshaun Jackson has played in a max of 2 games this season total. Our linemen are old. We had to rely on Jason Peters. Now, I will not hold against him the injuries of Dillard and looking at the injuries of Brooks. But they did not retool and have people in the back ready to go for that line. The defense has constantly needed improvement. And all he got was Darius Slay. There was more moves that needed to be done, and he did not get it done. His drafting has been abysmal. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, yesterday's game, the second-round pick in the 2018 draft, guess where he was on that game? Sitting on the sidelines. A healthy scratch. And there's plenty more examples where that comes from. Whether it's drafting running backs too early or taking a quarterback like Hurts in the second round of this recent draft, there is plenty of blame to go around with Howie Roseman. He has not retooled this team. He has not built it up to be healthy every season. He has relied on pieces that are not correct for the design of this team. And he will have to pay for that at a later time. I would be shocked if after this season, Howie Roseman still had his job. Because when we needed him to step up, when we needed him to bring talent to this team in order to fill the gaps that were clear to anyone that has even watched one game of football, anyone could tell that there were serious gaps in his team. Howie Roseman did not fill those gaps. Now, I understand in a lot of situations, the price might have been too high. The trade might have not been the right one for him because he's always got to win. But sometimes you need to take a hit in order to build up. You need to be able to retool for the future. You got to think long term. It can't always just be now. In 2017, he thought about now, and it worked. But we have paid the price for it over the last 3 years since then. Another situation, Zach Ertz, that contract negotiation had gone nowhere, and in an opportunity where you could have traded him to get actual real value, he then gets injured, and there's no trade value now. So you have a disgruntled superstar on your team who's going to demand high money, and you're not going to be able to get him off. It is just shocking to watch that this franchise go from a Super Bowl winning franchise to now one of the worst teams in the league. But if anything came to fruition, or its realization, I should say, after that loss to New York Giants, again, a game that the Giants won. I want to be clear because there's a lot of Eagles fans out there who are only blaming the Eagles for this loss. But the Giants won that game because they wanted it more. And they beat the crap out of the Eagles for it. But again, if there's one thing to realize from this game right now, it is that this team is a bad team. Not the worst team in the league, but it's definitely not a good team. The Eagles have a long journey up a hill to get back to where they were. They have fallen into the crevice of mediocrity, of the bottom of the league, which is a constant cycle of churn in which they will hopefully reach the surface, but more than likely will be stuck there for a few seasons as they try to rebuild, because like many teams who don't realize the window to rebuild is small, and in order to have success quickly, you need to rebuild quickly. They are going to be stuck in a long and painful rebuild process in order to make this team a winning franchise again. There is going to be a lot of rebuilding on the offensive line, a lot of retooling up in the skill positions for this team. The defense needs to be rebuilt in a lot of areas and redrafting. Think of our defensive line. I love Brandon Graham. Love him to death. He is the heart of that defense. But he's getting old, and he's not going to be playing for much longer. Fletcher Cox, I mean, we saw him get off with a dislocated shoulder and then pop it right back in and play, but how long can he play for? Our linebacker core is terrible. We got TJ Edwards now and Grugier Hill who could possibly pull through, and Alex Singleton. But if you got to put Nathan Gary out there again, I will freak, because that man can't keep up with a lineman in coverage. And our cornerbacks have a long way to go. Mills has had to move back to cornerback to fill that up, and Mills is not a quick cornerback. He must play safety. There's no other question about it. So there's a lot that has to go into making this team good again. And I'm just saying good. I'm not even saying great. Just to make this team good. And a lot go there. And more than likely, we'll be looking at a new starting quarterback over the next few years. This is a team that was certain that they had found a franchise quarterback and now are back into that search. Maybe Hurts is going to be the answer. Right now, he doesn't look like it. And I don't think he is. And I think, again, we're going to see a wasted second-round pick by Howie Roseman in a draft that will not come to fruition. There's going to have to be some serious willing and dealing for him to keep his job this season. I'm telling you. Again, I'd be shocked if he's still the GM. But we're going to find out how this team turns around, how Laurie will hold this team to standard. Are they going to actually hold Doug Peterson up to the level that he needs to be held up to, the accountability that he needs to be seen as a head coach? And what, if any, value we will get by giving Carson Wentz a fresh start in a new city? I'm going to wrap it up there for this show. Again, as I mentioned, I apologize to all of you that had to listen to if you're not an Eagles fan, but hopefully it was entertaining because you can hear the passion coming from me right now, the venting I needed after a loss like that. I will say I appreciate everyone for always joining in to listen to the show. We will have more than just the Eagles coverage the next few weeks. We're going to have plenty of storylines. We're going to be talking about all the different divisions, who's in the lead, who has a chance to win and go far in the NFL. We're also going to be discussing the getting closer and closer to have the NBA restarting. There is plenty more to cover. But for now, I had to have my moment to get through this in the Eagles game. I will mention, I want to say at the end, something not sports related. This is the month of November. And also Movember, as you can see. And to you that are listening, you can't see, but those watching on YouTube, I have my mustache coming in full force. This is a very important month to me. I believe strongly in it because Movember is a great foundation that is raising money in order to battle a plethora of issues that face men's health, but more importantly for me, mental health, and making sure that it is okay for men to go out and talk about their emotions and not have to toughen it up and fight through everything. It's something we need to do in order to make sure that there's awareness and know that they have help, that if they need help, they can seek it. So I'm growing this mustache trying to earn money. If you go to onto our Instagram page, you can use the link in my bio in order to donate to it. If you don't want to use my page, just want to donate in general to Movember, please do. It's a wonderful foundation. It's Movember, Movember.com, Movember. Be sure to give them some help. They deserve it for sure. But again, that's something I want to give a shout out instead of just sports, a little something else for this. So again, thank you all for listening in. We'll be back with more content next week with episode 59. I look forward to talking to you then. Until then, have a good evening and good night. Thank you for listening to the ChadBurn Show. Remember to check out all new episodes every Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all major platforms where you listen to your podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me and want to send in your questions or requests for topics to discuss in the show, you can email chadburn.show@gmail.com. All episodes have video recorded, which is then posted to our YouTube channel, The ChadBurn Show. Be sure to subscribe to us where you get your podcast or on our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all our new content. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ChadBurn Show and on Facebook, The ChadBurn Show, to see clips from previously recorded episodes and information on all upcoming shows.